Welcome back to another episode of The Only Playbook. I am your host, Sweetcar. I got Shashot and Shovit alongside me here. We have another jam-packed episode. It is going to be one of the most important positions, not the quarterback, but this week we are ranking the running backs, the top 15 running backs in fantasy football heading into the 2024 season. A lot of running backs to choose from. Really, really challenging, in my opinion, to get these narrowed down to 15. Probably why more people do extended rankings, then you can just get everybody in the rankings. But man, narrowing it down to 15 was challenging. Shashot, how did you feel about coming up with your list?
Took me like 3 minutes, to be honest with you. The quarterback stuff took me a lot longer because, there's just so many more variables when it comes to choosing a quarterback for a fantasy team. Running backs, there's really like a given amount that you want as your workhorse guys. And then there's the guys trying to take other people's jobs. It's pretty laid out. But I see where the troubles are. It's like once it gets even the top 5, it's difficult to put, like the 5th guy could go number 1. The number 1 could go 5. So I didn't spend too much time beating myself up over the rankings because I know what the limitations are for each. But the 15 through 11 really kind of it was a tough choice. So at number 15, I have Isiah Pacheco. He's going to be a pretty used guy in this offense because there's really not very many good running backs on this team. They have a lot of running backs, and they simply don't really care to have big name running backs on this team. Isiah Pacheco using that method kind of worked out for them, right? He's a grinder. He's like just a hustler grinder, and in an offense led by one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. You don't really need much other than somebody that just works really hard. So Isiah Pacheco does a really good job of getting that extra yard. So he deserves to get the touches. And they've had other guys try to take his job multiple times, and they haven't succeeded. So that just gives us confidence that he will be used heavily in this offense moving forward. More statistics like goal line usage has increased for Pacheco. They tried this whole McKinnon thing for a while, which might still be a thing on passing down plays and whatnot. But Isiah Pacheco got a lot of passing down work last year too, and he caught a lot of passes, surprisingly, more than what we thought he would. So using all that information, looking at the carries, looking at the third down usage, looking at the passing down work, he's not really big enough to be a solid blocker to be higher up on this list for me. But looking at prior usage, the tendencies and the situational times he's being used, this is a surefire RB2 in a lot of people's rankings. Number 14, I have Josh Jacobs. He's a lot lower in a lot of people's rankings. I debated making him even higher than this. But I told you guys this before last season ended, when we were talking about some of the people we're watching out for, what situations look good. I like Josh Jacobs playing for Green Bay. There's a lot of things going in his favor. There's a lot of things not going in his favor. Number one, the money talks, right? Like they paid him a solid amount of money to be what he was for the Raiders, which was a pretty good running back. But the problem was some years it hit, some years it didn't. I think we kind of saw what he can do when he is a bell cow kind of a guy now. There was all that Drake usage for a little bit and some of these other guys trying to come in, but they really used Josh Jacobs to his full capacity. And he kind of looked like a small Saquon Barkley out there with how well he played some of the times when he got the opportunities. So I think a lot of that continues. The thing going against him in Green Bay is the coaches. They just hate successful fantasy running backs. They just love to just half-ass the work, spread it all around. This is a big committee type of environment, but I'm hoping that changes. Some signs point towards that changing. We've seen this, the new quad god trying to take people's jobs be a talk, but it just hasn't happened yet, and I don't think it's going to happen. I really don't think it's going to happen. I think Josh Jacobs is going to be a sleeper in a lot of people's eyes because he's not considered a top 5 or a top 10 back for almost like 80% of the people. I think he can sneak into that range very easily, just looking at the situation that is provided for him there. Number 13, I got Achane. This is one that I'm not putting here with confidence. Most of these other ones, I'm pretty sure they're going to hit. This one, it's a hit or miss type of a player, but the hit is so high that it's impossible not to put him on there. On a run-first offense led by one of the best run scheming coaches on a team filled with speed, right? So who do you guard? And Etienne is going to really, if he plays anything like what we've seen before, which I don't see why it can't continue, he just has to catch the ball and avoid people, and there's like at least 6 points like every time he touches the ball, which is crazy. And it's unsustainable for a lot of people, but when you're the fastest person on the field almost every game, it's easy to do. So I think just knowing that it's a boomer bust situation, kind of like what we thought Jahmyr Gibbs was going to be mainly. This is the type of role that he's going to be playing now. And I don't know the health of Mostert going all the way. And I just don't know the running back situation. Last year, there was all this Jeff Wilson talk. Again, none of that was really concerning from the beginning. It was always going to be Etienne until he got hurt. So I think a lot of that's going to continue again. I think practicing another year under all these other running backs and all these other really good players on that team is only going to help him more. So I begrudgingly put him at 13, but beware. This is one of the players that you draft. He doesn't do well. I can't really help you, man. Like it's not a player that can take a lot of damage going downhill. It's just a guy that needs to avoid people. And we're at the NFL now. So we'll see. Number 12, I got Alvin Kamara. Again, man, last year was kind of a outlier in my eyes because Alvin Kamara has proven since he came to the league that he can take the ball and give you points, right? He might end up being like the running back with the 20th most carries this year. However, he can make up all those points from the passing game. That's one thing we've seen from Kamara is they will never shy away from giving this man the ball. That's just it's been proven to us. And again, I'm big on statistics. I'm big on what may happen, but I'm also really big on what has happened. And what has happened is third down work, second down work, between the tackles, whatever you ask of Kamara, the team has always tried to get the ball in his hands. And I don't think he's gotten worse. I really don't think so. I think the team just sucked overall last year. There was, a lot of coming back from behind. It just wasn't a very obvious running situations presented to him throughout the season. Injury concerns are there, obviously, but he's one of the few running backs on an offense that is struggling and gets used quite frequently through the air. So that usually, equals out at least 50 receptions plus a couple of touchdowns there, here and there. And he's pretty good to avoid a lot of tackles, run through people. He's one of those complete backs that does not seem like he's losing his job anytime soon, although there are talks about Kendre Miller becoming better. So we will see. It's a running back situation. Nobody cares about running backs. We know, but this guy's established himself pretty well in the NFL, and I think that deserves number 12. Number 11, I got Kyren Williams here. Again, new offensive things may happen in this offense. A lot of uncertainty, but a lot of stability, right? Like last year was the uncertainty year for the Rams. And then Kyren came in and he's like, hey, man, I can do all these things you ask of me. And he did them. And that was during, Kupp being injured, Nakua's this rising star. While all that was developing, Kyren Williams was still doing Kyren Williams things. He got the ball on the ground. He did well with that. Caught the ball through the air. Did well with that. He passed well. I mean, he blocked well during passing situations. He did everything a coach could want. So I don't see why they can't just continue doing that. They did spend, a pretty hefty draft pick on a running back that could take his job. So, there are concerns that they drafted somebody very similar to him, but I think, I don't see a player like that just decreasing in usage just because somebody else got there, right? He's proven to be top 5 running back last year in fantasy. So it's pretty foolish to think that he would go any lower, especially like it's kind of like an Eckler situation as far as how well and what he does for the team, pretty much everything. And Eckler, because of his older age and injury history, just got slower coming from rehab. None of those are real concerns for Kyren Williams. I think we're going to see productivity. I don't think we'll see a top 5 productivity because so many other running backs have been given such better situations. But I think Kyren Williams sticks around in this top 12 range for sure.
Nice. I think we actually have similar people. You mentioned some players that maybe a little bit higher for me, but it sounds very like in that same sort of category. So number 15 for me is Josh Jacobs, a player that the Packers went out and got in this free agency. So I think a lot of it, is about, like you said, money talks. And certainly Marshawn Lloyd might be in the mix, but I think that Josh Jacobs is in a better team with the Green Bay Packers and certainly can have, success like Aaron Jones in the past may have had before as well. So I think that Josh Jacobs will bode well this year. Number 14, I have Rachaad White. Very inefficient player last year, but still had tremendous volume that he received. And that's the point. There's just a lot of volume. And I think until there's any sort of, injuries or anything else, I can't see anything changing in that sense. There's talks about Bucky Irving, but he could still, he's RB3 and there's Chase Edmonds. So I think that I'm still expecting the same until things change for Rachaad White.
He actually didn't even make my cut. He didn't make the top 15 for me. But there's reasons for that. Yeah.
Very inefficient. And speaking of inefficiency, the next guy also is very inefficient. Joe Mixon, right? A guy also been inefficient his whole life, but he's in a team that is a good team in the CJ Strouds and the Houston Texans. So just a lot of volume to go around. And despite how lackluster his stats may look, he gets you points and he gets you touchdowns. And so a team that we saw Singletary do really well or decent at times, Dameon Pierce is not someone to be a threat to Joe Mixon. I think he can certainly finish top 15 as well. Number 12, I have Alvin Kamara. Also a guys that's getting a little bit older, but he's still seeing the same sort of reps, right? He's not having Kendre Miller come in and take his job. Kendre Miller hasn't been a threat. And until, that becomes certain, like an issue, I'm still going out and drafting Alvin Kamara, given the right price for him. I think he's going to be heavily utilized in this offense, and his pass catching abilities is certainly something to be sought out for in terms of running back value is concerned. And then 11, I have Devon Achane. I just think he's an explosive runner. The only guy that he has to kind of beat out is Mostert. Mostert's getting getting up there in age, and he is able to produce. Both of those guys can produce. Two running backs can be successful in this team, whether it's Mostert or the guy that they drafted, Jalen Wright, right? And so Mostert might not even be in the picture. It might be Jalen Wright that's playing really well. But I still think that in this high flying offense, this just next level stuff, there's certainly a world where Devon Achane can be successful. So I am banking on this offense and going out and drafting him in the right price.
Awesome. Yeah, very similar names. I'll just kick mine off and then we can debate it. Number 15, I have Rachaad White. He was one guy that I debated putting in my top 15, and he just barely made the cut. I have more fear of Bucky Irving than other people. Bucky Irving is a really, really good between the tackles runner, and Rachaad White was incredibly inefficient at that. What Rachaad White was really good at is of his 70 targets, the dude caught 64 of them. So it doesn't get much more efficient catching passes. You only had 6 targets that you did not catch. That's incredibly efficient. So I expect that to regress to the mean. His rushing ability has already been quite inefficient, but he is still the starting running back, and it's hard to project a rookie running back that isn't like a anomaly Saquon Bijan type player to come in and immediately take everything or a significant chunk. But I do like Bucky Irving, the player. Rachaad White still gets enough work, enough touches. And again, even if the efficiency slightly decreases, he's going to hover in that 15 spot for me, in my opinion. He could be 16, 17, but that's what made that top 15 so hard. He barely makes the cut. Number 14, Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon, incredibly inefficient, but what has changed for Joe Mixon? Nothing in a general sense. He went to another team that passes the ball first, that has a superstar quarterback, that has 3 incredibly efficient receivers, that has a better offensive line. So he needs to do exactly what he did in Cincinnati, except he's running behind a better offensive line. So as long as he's just Joe Mixon and a running back that's, can stay inefficient, but make the most out of his red zone touches, which he should get plenty of with that high flying offense. I expect similar production, a guy, again, that does nothing sexy on paper, even on the stat sheet. But when you look at the end of the week, he always puts together 12 to 15 points consistently. So he comes in at number 14 for me. Number 13, I have James Cook for the Buffalo Bills. I don't believe either of you guys mentioned James Cook yet. Finished his sophomore season as running back 11 with only 4 rushing touchdowns. He did catch 2 of them. The offense drafted Ray Davis, which Ray Davis was another running back that I came into the season really, really liking. So interesting to draft him to a team that already has a young stud running back. But again, similar situation that I don't think Ray Davis is going to come in and take that job completely. What changes for James Cook, in my opinion, is we saw how much more the offense flourished once they got him involved weeks 11 through 18. Again, we talk about vacated targets. One of the biggest benefactors of vacated targets is not actually the plug and play next in line receiver. It's the running back. So do I expect this offense that no longer has their 2 star-studded receivers to start to utilize their star-studded running back more in passing situations, maybe with Ray Davis on the field as well and James Cook lining up outside, kind of like a Mostert Achane situation? I absolutely do expect that. So I think, again, James Cook's stock is rising. It's just we need to see him get the ball in goal line touches in important situations and touchdowns. He needs to be able to convert touchdowns. That was his biggest issue, is he just wasn't scoring touchdowns. If, again, the electricity and how good of a player we know James Cook to be can actually, put all of that together on paper and on the field, his touchdowns of 4 should see a spike up for sure. Number 12, Travis Etienne for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I had a hard time with him. He was a tale of two halves last year. First half of the season, incredibly efficient. Second half of the season, incredibly inefficient. We saw the Jacksonville Jaguars offense continue to just be very chaotic, random, like just not completely in sync, 1 foot inbounds, 1 foot out of bounds. Trevor Lawrence just missing passes. So it just felt like everything wasn't quite gelling. Now, that doesn't stop him from producing because, again, he's a pass catcher. He can run the ball between the tackles. I was always worried about his smaller stature, but it seems like he is not letting that impact him in the NFL. So another steady Eddie, as they like to call him. But I think with Trevor Lawrence getting paid, I don't know why I'm still holding out hope that there's more to Trevor Lawrence and there's more to this Jacksonville Jaguars offense. And I think if that's going to actually happen, Travis Etienne's going to have to be one of the big reasons why. But again, number 1 running back in an offense that uses him quite a bit. He comes in at number 12 for me. And then number 11, Devon Achane. All of the reasons you guys mentioned, but one extra thing I want to add, he came out and said he wants to catch the ball more. They came out and said they're going to start lining him up outside as a receiver in different spots. Just imagine Achane lining up as a receiver next to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I'm sorry, every other defense in the NFL. I don't know how you could possibly think about stopping an offense like that. Like you literally can't. If you stack those two guys on one side and you have Devon Achane coming on, like wheeling out, running a Texas route, whatever, running on the same side, it is physically, quite literally impossible to guard. So this guy had one of the most incredible fantasy seasons I've ever seen. Just the efficiency, we talk about guys who run the ball for 5 yards a carry and think that's efficient. I mean, every single time this guy touched the ball, it felt like he was running it for 8, 9, 10 yards a clip, basically hitting home runs. That is going to regress, but his usage should increase because Mostert's getting older. They want to give Achane more of the offense. It's just the fear that we had coming into his, career in the NFL. He's an undersized running back. So one massive hit and he could easily get hurt. So there is fear there, but again, we don't really think about injuries or try to predict injuries in that sense when we're doing rankings. So the upside potential, if he's getting used even slightly more than he was last year, he has a really good shot to be a top 10 finisher.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of those sentiments for all those players. James Cook didn't make my list, and neither did Rachaad White. Those two were a little couldn't make any space.
Yeah, James Cook didn't make my list either, and I think that it's kind of strange. I think the vulture-ness of who's the vulture guy again that always comes in?
Latavius
Murray. Yeah, Latavius Murray last year. I think he took a lot of James Cook. So maybe that's still instilled in my mind. And I don't know if he's still going to have that touchdown opportunities that we want.
All right. So you guys ready to talk about the next batch of players?
Let's do it.
Oh, 10 through 6.
So 10, I got Joe Mixon, right? We kind of beat this horse to death by now, but I have him a little bit higher up than you guys just because of the offensive uniqueness. I really don't think it's also because of what D'Amico Ryans said most recently. That's basically the main reason I moved him up a little bit. He just really likes him. It's one thing when your players like you, but it's another when the coach likes you, which means he's going to get you the ball. It's just going to be, it's pretty obvious. Those situations always play out in the player's favor when the coach is raving about you. And that's kind of what's happening. He's saying how he's a fun player to coach because he's always there accepting new roles and blah, blah, blah. But it seems like he's kind of keeping up with learning a new playbook rather quickly, which is unique for a running back because their role isn't to really grasp the offense that well. Their role is just run the ball and go in that direction. So it sounds like a good fit for the offense. I think it's going to be a high-scoring offense, like we mentioned on the last podcast. A lot of that is probably going to come through Joe Mixon as well. They did sign, what's his name? Akers, Cam Akers just recently, but I'm not really too worried about that. We already saw what some of the other backups on the team could do last year, and nothing really stuck out like, oh my God, I can't believe he's losing his job to Pierce or anything like that. Pierce wasn't looking as dominant as he did initially. So I think the role's his to be had. I mean, he's proven in the past what he can do, and I think his role just needs to stay the same. He might get few more touchdowns here and there, a few more bigger plays opportunities. So I think, he hovers around this area. So I'll keep him there at 10. Travis Etienne, same thing, Sweetheart. Like you mentioned, I think this offense does take the next step. I think a lot of people thought that was going to happen the last 2 years, but it just didn't work out because a lot of receivers, the whole situation was a mess. It was just a mess. This whole offense just couldn't come together. A lot of touchdowns, like 6 or 7 touchdowns were just 1 inch out from being a touchdown. Instead, it ended up becoming an incomplete pass. Just bad positioning, bad geometry. It was just shitty. And I think all that kind of regresses to the mean. They kind of capitalize off of a lot of those mistakes. And the beneficiary of this is going to be Etienne, because he really doesn't have much competition. I know Bigsby's a talk. He had every opportunity to take a huge chunk of this offense last year, and he didn't. And we know Etienne can do pretty much everything. He's a smaller back, but that's the reason he got drafted higher than a lot of other players, because he does a little bit of everything, and he's fast, he's powerful, catches screen passes really well. So I think he continues that role, and I think this offense taking this next step moves him up a couple of points from where he was last year on my board. Number 8, I got Derrick Henry. I don't know if I've ever ranked him this low, but some people might think it's still a little too high. I think this is a perfect situation for Derrick Henry. He's going to get, if not as many touchdowns as he's used to getting, he's going to get the ball just as much as as you guys all know, he's on the Ravens now, and they're a run-first team. They like to run before they pass, and all those opportunities are not going to Gus Edwards anymore. They're not going to J.K. Dobbins. They were they sat in a circle, and they're like, what the hell are we doing, guys? What is up with this running back situation? Can we just find the best one and just put him next to this quarterback who's basically a running back? And they're like, let's just go get the best one. So they did that. I think he's going to, benefit a lot of passing down work in this situation too, because of the scrambling aspect of Lamar. That's not something he's very used to. So I think Derrick Henry is going to benefit from a lot of things that he's not normally used to benefiting, but I think his touchdowns will decrease a little bit just because Lamar is going to take a couple of those, and he likes to throw to Andrews in the end zone quite a bit. But who knows? They might just be even more firepowered, and he just gets more opportunity at the goal line. So this is a nice spot. 8, but he could easily be 1. I mean, there's a world where he could just outright dominate this league and be like, hey, I'm still here. Next up, I got Jahmyr Gibbs. Easily could be number 2 this year. I just think Montgomery's not somebody that just goes away. He's just not. And what I've learned from watching a lot of these off-season stuff is Montgomery's like a teacher to him. Like he's telling him how to hold the ball, telling him how to do this. Like Montgomery is the guy for a reason, right? Like we don't just pick some guy and just say, oh, he's better than Jahmyr Gibbs. There's got to be something about him that is keeping these coaches from not just saying, Jahmyr Gibbs, take the ball and just go. There's a reason. I think a lot of that does happen. I think Jahmyr Gibbs touches the ball a lot more than he did last year. But Montgomery's going to be there to ease the pain from Gibbs through all this bruising work that he's going to have to be doing. And I think that's the role Montgomery has. So having all these offensive weapons on this team, it eases the running backs to score more fantasy points, bigger yardage. And I think a lot of that is going to be Montgomery just doing the early down work, and he's going to benefit from that. So Gibbs, too many mouths to feed. Could be 2, but he's just on a too good of an offense for him to jump up to like 1 or 2. I think there's just too many people catching the ball here. So I think I'm going to put him at 7. No knock on him at all. I think he's going to do great in the role that he is. It's going to be a better role. I just think there's too many players ahead of him that can do better. One more person, and I'll hand it off to you, Shovit. We are at number 6 now, and I'm going to put Zamir White at number 6. When I said I'm all in on this guy, I am officially all in. We're here. This is it. This is where you make the money. This is why we make these decisions. There's nothing about him that I regret putting him this high, right? You're in an offense that struggles, sure, but look at Rachaad White last year, right? This is the same exact logic. There's nothing different. It's the same situation, same logic, same everything. The player got better. The player's faster. The player doesn't really have a good backup to trying to take his job. It's just volume. This is pure volume. He'll get the carries. He'll get the third down usage. He'll get the passing down work. He'll get the blocking opportunities. He doesn't really have that big of an injury history for me to be concerned, the type of injuries he's had. In college, he was used heavily. Prior usage shows he's likely going to get the ball more, and it's pretty obvious what's been happening in training camp. He's lining up. There is no Madison anywhere near the field to try to take any carries away from him. So again, just don't let you be the guy that just ignores him completely and then just like, what is this? What happened? Well, this is what's happening. It's just perfect scenario for a running back who's not one of the best in the league, but who is improving and who can do everything and whose team is willing to give him the ball. So that's my middle round of players.
Awesome. I love that you picked Zamir White, number 6. That was perfect because you just handed it off to me because I have Zamir White number 10. I think he's the lead guy. He's the lead guy in the Raiders team, and weeks 15 to 18 average 144.3 total yards. And so he looks like a freaking Tesla truck now. So I feel like, there's no stopping him. I think he's going to be great in this offense. So certainly a guy that can have a breakout year this year. And no Josh Jacobs. So that goes well for him too. Number 9, I have Kyren Williams. I think this is just going to be a rinse and repeat of last year. I understand they did get Blake Corum, but it's a rookie running back. I don't think they'll put him in right away. I think that Kyren Williams will still get the reps, still get the opportunities, and still play as he did last year. I don't see anything changing in that sense in this offense. Number 8, I have Travis Etienne. I think last year was his first year healthy. So this is going to be his second year, hopefully healthy as well. He's got the explosive ability. Certainly a guy who started hot, but then kind of died down later on. But I think the Jaguars are going to be a different team. They go out and get Brian Thomas, Gabe Davis, 2 guys that can go ahead and spread that field and hopefully create more space for Travis Etienne to run the ball and be more efficient as well. So a better offense bodes well for this talented player in Travis Etienne. Number 7, I've got Derrick Henry. Should be the workhorse in Baltimore. And he was still efficient last year, ranked 9th in explosive run rate. So I think, and 11th in yards per contact. So I think, given an RPO where you have to try to figure out if you're going to contain Lamar Jackson or get, guard Derrick Henry, what are you going to do? That's going to be really good for Derrick Henry owners and Lamar Jackson, as we talked about last year as well. So I think that he should be back to his at least top 10 status this year for sure. Next, number 6, I have Isiah Pacheco, a lot higher on my list than you showed, but just no competition, games, no Jared McKinnon. So when he wasn't playing, he was certainly the guy that was getting a lot of fantasy points, a lot of carries, and playing really well as well. And again, same kind of concept as the Jaguars, but this time for the Chiefs, who have 2 fast players, Hollywood Brown, and they also get James Worthy. So expecting that too high safety look. And I think that will also allow Pacheco, who's already a beast of a player. The players love him. The team loves him. He'll definitely be utilized and have a good year this year, like he did towards the later end of last year. That's number 6. I almost went on to 1, but yeah, that's 6 for me.
All right. So real quick before I start, Zamir White was number 17 on my board. So he does not crack my top 15, but I respect both of what you guys said. What's awesome is Zamir White was my first running back drafted in my dynasty draft this year. And he was 67th overall. RB20 is where I took him. And he was my first running back taken off the board. So interesting logic. I hope you guys are both right, because then I just hit a smash home run with my first running back in the 6th round. So with that being said, number 10, I have Josh Jacobs. I think highest on the board out of everyone. So surprise, surprise. No, not at all. Money talks should show that is literally all I'm basing this off of. Why did they pay this running back so much money when Aaron Jones was averaging 5 yards a carry at age 29? Why did they bring back the shittier of the 2 running backs between Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon? It's because this man is going to get fed the football. This man is going to be basically doing everything Aaron Jones did, catching the passes, but he's also a between the tackles runner. So he can do what they wanted AJ Dillon to do between the tackles. And yeah, Marshawn Lloyd is certainly there, but like we said, rookie running back coming in and taking over a job, let alone eating into the playing time of a guy that just got like a 3-year massive contract in one of the most unfriendly positions in all of football. I am chasing the money there. So I think Josh Jacobs, just volume wise, we've seen him lead the entire NFL in rushing. So clearly he's capable of handling the workload. He's capable of producing, even though that year he was a pretty inefficient running back. So the fact that he led the league in rushing while being rather inefficient, now he goes into a better offensive situation. I love it. I think Josh Jacobs is going to be a home run this year. Number 9, Isiah Pacheco, a little bit higher than you, a little bit lower than you, Shovit. So kind of right in the middle. All of the reasons that Shovit said. No Jarrett McKinnon. Jarrett McKinnon was the biggest reason Pacheco wasn't on the field on 3rd downs. If he's not coming back, and towards the tail end of last year, we saw Pacheco on the field on 3rd downs, catching those dump offs. He was everywhere. He was doing everything. Travis Kelce gets another year older. Hollywood Brown is old. And Rashee Rice seems to just not have his head on straight. So Mahomes is going to need to look to a guy that's going to be dependable, reliable, and show, like you said, who better than the guy that just tries his absolutely hardest. And so that's why I think Pacheco is going to see the football quite a bit. He comes in at number 9. Jahmyr Gibbs, number 8 for me. electricity every time he touches the football. I was in denial about it all last year, so I am finally on the bandwagon. But the biggest problem with him ranking any higher than this is, again, 10 rushing touchdowns, incredibly efficient, but there is a guy by the name of David Montgomery that is not going away. Again, that becomes his mentor, that becomes the bruiser, that becomes the guy that we saw in times where it was crunch time. It wasn't Gibbs, it was Montgomery. So as much as the flashiness of Jahmyr Gibbs overshadows the steadiness of David Montgomery, his production can't go unnoticed, and that is eating into the potential production that Jahmyr Gibbs can have. So by sheer nature of the backfield that he is in, it limits his upside potential, but he is still number 8, which is crazy to say. Number 7, I have Derrick Henry. King Henry comes into what you both said, the best situation of his NFL career. He's running a read option. He's in a run-first offense with a quarterback that is scarier than he is as a runner. So let that sink in for everybody that's going to decide who they want to stop between King Henry and Lamar Jackson while they're running an RPO and just dominating. So no shortage of any opportunities that he's going to have. They obviously signed him because, like you said, Shoshot, they looked around and said for like 5-6 years, we've had a revolving door of running backs around one of the best quarterbacks we've ever had, one of the most electric quarterbacks the NFL's ever seen. Why don't we put another electric player next to him? And now they have King Henry there. So sky's the limit, in my opinion, for Derrick Henry. Number 6 comes Saquon Barkley. I haven't heard either of you guys mention him, so I'm assuming he's top 5 for both of you guys, which would make a lot of sense. I just have him at number 6. Final year of basically the prime of Saquon Barkley at age 27. So I think he is in a amazing situation. He could easily finish the year, in my opinion, RB1. The problem with him just becomes he's in an offense with so many other electric players that are going to produce. He's in an offense with a quarterback that loves to run the football in for touchdowns. He's in an offense where I don't know that the tush push is completely going away. So he went from an offense where he was used 99% of the time because they had literally nobody to he becomes a complement to the rest of the offense. Not to say that they won't beat him to the ground, because I think they will work him like they should, but he's not a necessity like the Giants needed him to be on every freaking play of his entire career. So to me, that's why he is number 6 on my list. So top 10 or 10 through 6, I had Jacobs, Pacheco, Gibbs, Henry, and Barkley.
Solid. Yeah. Perfect segue into my Saquon ranking. He's number 5. He's
Boom.
number 5 for me. For all the same reasons. I just, one thing I really want everybody to just kind of understand is unicorn running backs with no backup. His backup's Kenneth Gainwell. We've seen. Let's just forget about that stuff now. Okay, all these teams that are all this run first team, they're all understanding. Like, let's just go get the best version of this. Why do we mess around with 474 overalls when we can just go get 198 overall? And we'll talk about some of these players, but King Henry's one of them, and Saquon's the other one, where teams are just like, fuck it, I'm tired of this shit. Let's just go get the best one available. Again, goal line work, right? We talked about this with the Jalen Hurts rankings last week. I think he's just going to get more touchdown opportunities than he did in New York, probably ever in New York. Like, probably in the history of his New York career, he's going to get more touchdown opportunities than all of those, right? And his competition is Skinny Batman and AJ Brown, and a couple of tight ends. So it's not like we're dealing with he's going to get the ball. Like, he's still the best player. You can make an argument that he's still the best player out of all those players that I just mentioned too. Saquon is a player that can be right up there with CMC. He has every ability CMC does. He just plays for the shittiest team. CMC plays for the best team. Like, it makes a difference. It really makes a difference in how you evaluate running backs. And I think, like you said, Sweetheart, he could easily be number 1. I would not be shocked if he ends up getting 30 touchdowns this year. That's not an improbability. He can get all those 1-yard touchdowns. It could all be his now. It could all be his, and he can get more. He's still good. He's still fast. We watched this live. This guy still has the gas. And I know you said he might be in his prime. I think he's one of those players that can play well into his prime a little bit more. I think he's going to be like 33, 32, 33, and then you'll start to see some decline because he's just one of those rare people. Next up, I got Jonathan Taylor at 4. As somebody who, has had a share of him. I've seen the highs and I've seen the lows, and I don't think we're going to be seeing any lows this year. I think the only lows you'll see is on your drive to work. If you're still driving to work, look to your left, look to your right. There's probably a lows there. But right now, his only competition is Trey Sermon and Evan Hall. Okay. And he's going to be playing with Anthony Richardson, who I have as my number 1 quarterback this year, and just an array of receivers everywhere. So Again, this is the one difference between Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, and some of these other studs and Jonathan Taylor is he's not technically in a run-first offense. He's still in a hybrid offense. I don't know what to call it because of this new quarterback here that he barely played last year. We don't know. There's so many uncertainties with this offense that I cannot feel confident in saying, all right, all things go. Every light looks good. Let's just put him at 1. I don't have that. I can't say that with certainty. So I'm going to put him at 4 because the other people above him, I can say those things. So that's the only reason he's at 4. I think he does a little bit more work than Saquon because of the youth around him. I think they're going to have more opportunities for Taylor. I think AJ Brown still gets a lot of the targets over there versus Taylor probably gets more focus than any of the other wide receivers on this offense. So I'll have him at 4. It's movable, but right now he's at 4. Number 3, I have Breece Hall. I have Breece Hall because can you guys name me his backups?
Israel Abakanda.
Yeah, he's a third backup. He's not. He's a 4th string running back. We got Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis.
Yeah.
Like it's just
drafted Braylon Allen.
We're talking about Aaron Rodgers here. You think he didn't even like drafting his own receivers that were young on his team. You think he's going to come to the Jets and be like, yeah, let's just get the ball to Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis? It's not going to happen. He's still trying to recruit Devontae Adams because he's like, fuck these youth. Like, let me get some familiarity. So I think, again, the offense runs through Aaron Rodgers, and I think Breece Hall is somebody that he likes. And when a legendary quarterback likes you, you're probably going to get the ball quite a bit. And I think before last year ended, I had Breece Hall potentially overcoming CMC as the new number 1. I think that was in a podcast somewhere. But again, a lot of things have happened since then. Some really good quarterbacks are now playing in other places that are going to change what I'm about to say. But Breece Hall is happily at 3 with no competition. We've seen he's got the explosiveness of Jahmyr Gibbs. He's got the blocking ability of Travis Etienne and Joe Mixon and some of these like blue collar worker type of guys. And he's got catching ability that can hit home runs from literally anywhere. So all that bodes well for an offense that, likely will be close in games. I don't see the Jets just blowing out opponents like the Ravens probably will. So I see it being a close game, fight till the finish type of a situation. So a lot of passing work for Breece Hall coming. And I think it's just going to be a lot of fantasy points coming his way. Unless Devontae Adams ends up going there, then he's going to drop on the rankings to like 5 or 6. Next up, Bijan Robinson takes this spot. I debated heavily over CMC versus Bijan Robinson. I had to give it to CMC because Bijan Robinson is going to be 2 for the reasons that I've explained for everybody else, right? CMC and Bijan Robinson are the 2 players here that can do everything, plus do it better than probably everybody else, not named Saquon Barkley. So, they have all the tools. You have all the tools. CMC has shown those tools. Bijan has been not had the ability to show us those tools. And I think Bijan can be a better player than CMC. But as of right now, on this offense, with this team so far, with everything that has been said in the offseason and where the team is heading and looking at how the way Kirk Cousins plays this offense, it's going to go through Bijan Robinson now. And that being said, well, then why aren't you making him number 1? Well, because you're not going to change what has worked. And what has worked for Kirk Cousins is relying on the tight end in certain positions, making players like Justin Jefferson into number 1 wide receiver in the NFL. Those things are going to get amplified. You're going to see London doing better. You're going to see Pitts doing better. You're going to see all these other players doing better, which means Bijan Robinson can't get to the ceiling that he could possibly get because of these other players also getting there. There's only so many plays in football. There's only so many minutes in a game. So I think Bijan Robinson can do really well, right? If CMC goes down, I'm talking about it's probably the next number 1 wide receiver or running back in fantasy. But as long as a guy named CMC is there, who is the number 1 player on my list, there's no reason to bring him down any lower, right? There's only one reason that you could possibly convince me, and that is this Trent Williams questionable injury stuff going on. I don't know what the situation is at left tackle when the season starts. That's a huge position in football. That some may say that is one of the most important positions in football. And I'm still not sold on Brock Purdy. As you can see, I don't even know if I ranked him in our quarterback rankings last week. I'm just not sold. Like, I've seen what players do when they've been told what to do, but there's also players that you have to see what they do when they're not being told what to do. And with this cookie cutter of an offense that is very specific to the 49ers, we've seen the blueprint. We've already seen the blueprint of what's going to happen. There are people going to try to stop it. It's not going to work. It's the same shit. They're going to go to the playoffs. They're going to lose in the semifinals. It is what it is. CMC still the GOAT. There's no reason to change this ranking from my perspective. Bijan and Breece come close, but 2 and 3 are where they're going to be, and CMC is going to take the crown just because there's no other way. I have no statistic that makes me want to drop this any lower. Do you guys have any of that? Maybe you'll help me out here.
No, I mean, yeah. Maybe I'll have a different number one, which will be surprising, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that first. But I do like your Kirk Cousins propaganda, that he made Justin Jefferson. That was really kind of cool. Where you're like,
I mean, he helped him get the numbers that he got, right? He didn't throw the ball himself.
You're right. All right. Moving on. Number 5, Jonathan Taylor. I think no competition for Zach Moss. And Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor should pair really well in this offense. And even though there's uncertainty of you don't really know what this offense is going to look like, well, they are going to run the ball and they are going to give it to a guy in Jonathan Taylor who definitely has the skills to be that workhorse RB1 type of player. So I think that this is certain that top 5 is certainly in the possibilities with Jonathan Taylor this year. Number 4, I've got Saquon Barkley, bell cow, stud. And it's going to be an important part of the offense. And I think that just as we said that Jalen Hurts is going to take some, or Barkley's going to take some of Jalen Hurts, I think Jalen Hurts might even also take some of Saquon Barkley. So he may not be higher in that sense. But I think that there's certainly going to be potential and just volume for Saquon Barkley. I mean, there's not really much more to say than he's going to get the ball and he's going to produce. Number 3, Bijan Robinson. This is a new offense. May have been a little bit underused last year, but like you said, with Kirk Cousins in the mix, just more first downs. I think that the coaches are not going to try to go and use Algier as their guy as they did last year. I think that Bijan Robinson is going to be the guy that they go out and try to utilize and get them to be a successful offensive team. So with that being said, Bijan Robinson has all the skills. Everything's just kind of laid out for him. He just has to produce now. And I think this is going to be the year that he does come out on top and finishes number 3. Number 2, I've got Breece Hall. Bruiser, expecting breakout season this year. He had over 1,500 yards last year with Zach Wilson. Now with Aaron Rodgers, right? You need a quarterback needs a running back that can. You want a balanced offense, and this guy, he gets you touchdowns, he gets you long breakaway, yards. He can do it all, really. So I think this year for Breece Hall, Aaron Rodgers, if he's the quarterback, there's nothing to stop Breece Hall on this team. And number 1 this year, I think, is going to be Najee Harris. I think I'm just kidding. Number 1 this year. Hey, but this is contract year. He's got a lot to prove. Arthur Smith offense. I'm just saying. Notable mention. But no, it's going to be CMC, the GOAT. Last year we thought, in the injuries or something, but they always find a way for him to get a touchdown. 1 touchdown a game is not super crazy for CMC this year. And so I think that it's just there's no way you can go with anyone else that's a safer pick than CMC as your first pick. If you have the first pick and you don't want CMC, you better trade back so that you don't get that other guy to have a better draft later. So just draft CMC.
Yeah, real quick before you go, Sweecar. What's crazy about CMC is like every player on his team already knows CMC is the best player on the team. So like that takes away like, oh, why don't I get touchdowns? Oh, why don't you throw me the ball in the end zone? Like there's a cohesive understanding that when the ball gets close to the end zone, CMC gets the ball. Like that's huge for fantasy purposes because you're not wondering, you're not wondering why your guys aren't getting the touchdown because they're what they won't. They won't.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Similarly, and then we can debate real quick. Number 5, I have somebody a lot higher than both of you guys. Put some respect on my man, Kyren Williams, man. You guys want to use the argument that the coach loves their player. There is not a coach in the NFL that loves their running back more than Sean McVay loves Kyren Williams. This man had every opportunity to have his job taken from him. Cam Akers came and went. All these other, I can't even remember the other running back's name that was in the position to fight Kyren Williams for the job and did not get it. Kyren Williams catches passes. He runs between the tackles. He blocks on third downs. He's running for 5 yards a carry in an offense that has Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. So you want to talk about a team that has trust in a running back. And yes, I love Blake Corum as much as the next guy. But again, Sean McVay doesn't love Blake Corum as much as he loves Kyren Williams. We know that much for sure. So not yet anyways. And Kyren Williams is going to have to make Sean McVay not like him for Sean McVay to start liking somebody else more. So until Kyren Williams starts to prove us right in doubting him from the minute he was drafted into the NFL, I'm not going to doubt this guy. I'm not going to doubt how efficient he was, how great of a running back he's been, how much he pass blocks, like all of the little things. There's a reason the coach loves him. To me, he is number 5 on my list. Number 4, Jonathan Taylor, rinse and repeat. Anthony Richardson, prime of his career. He can pass, he can catch. There's no Zach Moss. We don't know what this offense is going to look like, but there's one thing we do know: that man will eat. So he is number 4. 3 through 1 ends up, I think, being the same for all of us. Maybe number 3, I have Breece Hall. No, maybe Shove It was different on 3 and 2. Yeah. Number 3, I have Breece Hall. Aaron Rodgers, man, what more do we need to know? If Aaron Rodgers plays a full season, Breece Hall is going to play a season with Aaron Rodgers, and he's coming off a year where he had 76 passes caught from basically Joe Schmo, a bunch just regurgitated random quarterbacks that don't even matter. And now you're telling me Aaron Rodgers is going to get plugged into this offense? Yes, the sky is the limit for Breece Hall. He could finish as RB1. Would not surprise me at all. Number 2, Bijan Robinson, same thing. New quarterback. Biggest thing for me is what opens up for Bijan Robinson is the play action. The play action with Kirk Cousins is one of his most best things about Kirk Cousins is how good he is at play action. And what play action does when you're passing is it opens up the running game. So they can complement each other incredibly well. Bijan Robinson, in what felt like a disappointing season last year, in my eyes, felt like, man, I wish he could have done a little bit more. He finishes RB9. So to take a guy that was disappointing, finishing as a top 10 running back when he was getting touches taken away by Tyler Algier, by Cordero Patterson, by Taylor Heineke trying to keep the football and run it in, just you name it. Like, they were finding reasons. What was that game where Bijan Robinson touched the ball like 3 times and then just didn't play football? Yep. All of those reasons, and he still finished RB9. So, man, Bijan Robinson, one of my favorite players in the NFL right now. I can't wait to see how incredibly awesome he's going to be. I hope he comes for CMC's title because eventually that title and that run is going to end. But like all of you said, until he shows us that that's ending, I would be foolish for a second time to doubt CMC and be like, oh, he's going to get hurt. I probably should draft somebody else. Nope. CMC has proven time and time again that every single player on the football field, almost every other play, knows that CMC is touching the football, but God damn it, he is so productive when he catches the football, whether it's a Texas route, whether it's like a drag, no matter what he does, he is productive. He is running forward. He is falling forward. He's getting positive yards. He is incredible. He is unlike anybody we've ever seen. I mean, the closest thing to me is like LaDainian Tomlinson, but white. So it is incredible what this man can do. And again, until somebody proves that they can produce at a higher clip, when they know they are getting the football, when the offense knows, the defense knows, everybody knows that you're getting the football and you can still produce like CMC, we can't possibly just blindly crown somebody else as the number 1 running back. So for all of those reasons, CMC remains atop my rankings. 5 through 1, Kyren Williams, Jonathan Taylor, Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson, and Christian McCaffrey. So I think top 3, pretty similar, 3 through 1, a little bit jumbled, but I think we see that across the board, there are 3 clear-cut guys, which again, 3, but I think all of us are pretty lockstep that Saquon Barkley could easily enter that conversation, right? Given the situation that he is in, the position that he's in. We don't know what the uncertainty of Jonathan Taylor's offense is going to look like. And yet we still have him ranked like top 4 or 5. So that also means that if the certainty arises with that offense and it reaches its full potential, Jonathan Taylor could be in the play for running back 1 as well. Is there anybody else, maybe Zamir White, is there anybody else that you guys feel could really come in here and challenge for this top 3 spot that maybe, falls outside the top 10, or maybe we didn't even mention any dark horses that maybe we didn't mention that you guys want to get off your shoulders besides Najee Harris?
Josh Jacobs and Derrick Henry, I feel like are 2 people that can take the number 1 crown. Derrick Henry for sure. Just talking about all this right now, I want to move him up higher. I want to move him up to 6 and move maybe 7 and move Gibbs. Just flip flop Gibbs and Henry. Just think about it. Imagine having that stack, Lamar Jackson and Henry. Oh my God, I would subscribe to all things Ravens, or even having Jonathan Taylor and freaking Anthony Richardson. Just
Saquon and Hurts. These
Oh
duos
my
are
God.
insane. Dude.
Purdy and Seaton. No, I'm just kidding.
I still think like maybe not top 3, but top 5 for sure. Pacheco. I'm big on Pacheco this year. I think he certainly can produce.
There's
And
5 other players that do everything for that team. Pacheco he's great. He's great, but there's a reason he's on the tier below. Top 5 that's a big statement, dude. There's a guy named Patrick Mahomes that likes to throw the ball.
I want to see him touch the ball 25 times. It doesn't have to be 25 rushes, but if he's getting 20 rushes and 5 targets, then yes, that the production can, like the output can equate to whatever you want it to be, top 5. But again, he's a guy that averages 14 to 17 carries and maybe like 2 to 4 targets a game, at least historically, right? So I just think the output would have to be insane out of those touches to get him to where he needs to be. But this could be the year that he increases in touches, which I'm with you. That's why I have him ranked a little bit higher. No Jerick McKinnon to me is the biggest thing.
Right.
Yep. So, okay. So you think Pacheco? I personally, looking at my list, I'm with you guys. I think Josh Jacobs could easily finish in the top 5. Again, he is a guy that has already been the rushing king of the NFL on an incredibly shitty Raiders team. Now, speaking of the Raiders, here is my only glass half empty argument to Zamir White is Devontae Adams could not be more blatant about not wanting to be there. Like, did you guys watch Receiver yet? I've never seen a player like be so okay and the rest of the team be so okay. Yeah, be so okay with him just like being so just disinvolved or like against it or like this isn't for me or like I need a better environment, etc. Nonetheless, like we talked about, Aaron Rodgers is still trying to recruit that man, which means that the quarterback play for that team is Gardner Minshew right now. And if something happens to Gardner Minshew, it's Aiden O'Connell. So, and if Devontae Adams seeks trade, then who the fuck are those guys throwing the football to, right? So we could reach a situation where this team is so bad that it's bordering like how I felt about the Patriots with Ramondre Stevenson, where I was like, Ramondre can do it all in my opinion, but the offense and the team is so goddamn awful that I worry that week in and week out, the production may not be there. First, second down, you run the ball, on the third down, they have to pass, more 3 and outs, not sustaining longer drives to get him more touches. Those are all the things that I thought about when I had Zamir White like 16, 17. But it doesn't seem like you guys have the same type of fear.
No, I think I've seen enough from Minshew to just know that he'll keep people in the game. They may lose every single game. They may go 0-16 or 17 now. But I think it's enough. You know, if Aiden O'Connell was in all the talks about him being on top of the depth chart, then I would have definitely moved them a little bit lower. But just having that Minshew safety net kind of lets me know that there will be games where the score is within 2 scores. And I think up until then, we'll see at least some passes to the running back. It would be nice. It would be nice to see a better quarterback take the helm there soon, but I don't think it's going to happen this year. So yeah, he could easily drop lower for sure. This is straight up volume. This is just pure volume decision.
Yeah, hopefully with Antonio Pierce, they're like, they'll run through a truck for this guy. Like, it's one of those Mike Tomlin type of players, and Devontae Adams doesn't have sort of, a negative aspect of it. Like, coaches matter too, and so he may bring out the best in the Raiders.
Absolutely. My honorable mentions were Zamir White and my boy, the one and only Zach Moss, that I really wanted to sneak into my top 15, but I couldn't quite get him there. But those were my honorable mentions. Only 2 players that I listed on my honorable mentions. Any like just digging deep sleepers?
Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is a huge sleeper. Well, with everything we've talked about the Vikings offense getting better, and Aaron Jones has shown production every time he's been healthy. He's been like a top 10 running back. He's never not been that when he's healthy. So that could easily happen. We have Justin Jefferson taking half the field, so it can happen.
Yeah, I got a guy, and it's a split guy. So it could be this guy, but it'd probably be the other guy. So James Conner could definitely finish top 15. I think in that offense where it's heavy, run heavy, he's going to get the ball. He's still going to be an integral part of that and goal line carries as well. But if he gets injured, that's even kind of better in a bad sense because Trey Benson comes in and then boom, that guy's going to be a workhorse, and he's a guy that you need to keep on your radar as well.
I also realized that I did not have Alvin Kamara in my top 15, and I think both of you guys did. So, nothing really other than the fact that his production was just so like disgusting, like 22 targets and like 18, stuff that is unrealistic in a long stretch if you wish to be somewhat of a relevant football team, right? Like they were doing that because they were so dog shit that like that was the only way they could move the football. I pretty high hopes on Rashid Shaheed and that offense taking the next step. Kamara's getting a year older, and I do think, again, eventually they need a running back who can run. And Kamara has, he's never been a 20-touch guy from a running back perspective. And as he gets older, I just think they're more likely to keep using him more in a receiving back role. And Kendre Miller could come in and actually start to take carries. So the catching of Kamara definitely alone can make him a top 15 finisher. So definitely possible, but could just have been a classic overlook on my part. I just won't admit that to the podcast, but that is it, guys. That's the running backs. So many to talk about. Rankings for running backs. I think by the end of the season, we'll look back and be like, yeah, half these guys just got hurt in week 3 and didn't play the rest of the season. And then they're backups we didn't even talk about. So that's just the way the running back position goes. Let us know what you think. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit the like, hit the subscribe, help spread the word. You can listen to us anywhere you get your podcast platform at Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, at The Only Playbook. I am Sweetcar. My Twitter handle is below. That's Shashot. Same with him. And that is Shovit. Same with him. We are The Only Playbook. Thank you guys so much for another week. We will see you guys next week doing wide receivers.